Welcome everyone to UFO Unlimited. Today I've got Dean Alioto with me. I know I probably butchered that again, but I'm just gonna leave it right there. He is, well, if you've ever heard of the McPherson tapes, and I think that's what everyone calls them, we're gonna talk about that. And if you thought that was real, you might be a little bit surprised. We're also going to talk about his documentary. He's got a three-part documentary coming either at the end of this year, possibly, or maybe early next year. And we're just going to talk UFOs and eventually get into some Beatles. So if there are Beatles fans out there, we're going to talk about John Lennon's sighting and all of that also as well. So Dean, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show. And how's it going in California today?
Hey, Scott. It's another crappy perfect day here. Yeah, it just goes on and on like someone hits the repeat button. Which is good because, we're able to get out now because the quarantining and everything else has been lifted. So it's nice to be back out there. Yeah, so that's kind of the latest and greatest here, and working away on this crazy series, 4 years now in the making, but yeah, but we're pretty much done.
I'm in Chicago, Illinois, and pretty much same. The weather never changes, but it's just always crappy. So let's just hop right in. The McPherson tapes. I assume a lot of people probably know what that is and have probably seen it, but I'm sure also there are probably just as many people that have no idea what we're talking about. Do you want to take the lead on this and just describe? Well, let me actually just tell everyone it was the way I saw it was on YouTube, and it was up there as the real thing, a real ET abduction, and it was frightening as hell. I remember like, wow, I mean, this is scarier than any movie I ever saw. But I was very skeptical. I was like, it's gotta be fake, right? So that was my take on it. And for anyone that doesn't know what the McPherson tape was, that was basically it. Was a short film. And Dean, can you tell us how that all got started, please?
Sure. It was actually a full-length feature that came about because I had needed to make my first feature before I turned 25 because all of my director idols had. And so I had just finished dropping out of my second college, USC, and I remember just thinking, I've got to make that first film. How am I going to do this? I have no budget to do this, but I did have a friend who was willing to throw down $6,500, and I laughed and said, that's not a budget. That's a catering budget at most. And so I had been reading Communion at the time and found that terrifying, and really wanted to know what that experience would feel like. And how could I get as close to it as possible without, actually being part of the alien abduction club? And so it dawned on me the idea of shooting it in the first person, literally, where you were watching the whole thing from a 16-year-old's home video camera. So that was the conceit for it. And I did borrow a lot from like the Kentucky case, Kelly Hopkinsville, and a few other sources as well, and kind of created this thing that was, basically looks like it's, going to be, this is my girlfriend partner walking by.
That's okay.
I call it the Great Sasquatch passing by, so that may happen a couple times. So basically the concept was that you're watching a home video of the little girl's 5-year-old birthday party in a house out in the woods. And as the proverbial shit hits the fan, he keeps his camera recording and captures the whole event. So as they see a ship and aliens and what else, you know, the craziness that ensues. And so that was pretty much it. We shot it in basically one night. I worked off an outline, so it was improvised, but we did this thing, and so that was done, and we shot in 88, I believe, end of 88, October 88, I want to say, and then was released in 89. Film was distributed, distribution warehouse that had all of our masters and everything burned to the ground. And so we thought, well, that was it. You know, we're not going to see any money from that. It's history, end of story. And then it turns out that someone had edited off the credits and injected it into the UFO community, which over a 5-year period, it ended up at the International UFO Congress Convention, where it was presented as the real McCoy, and a retired lieutenant colonel in the military Air Force claimed it was authentic, and so did this UFO researcher, and that was it. And it was crazy. I ended up going on this show, this Fox show called Encounters, that was out in the 90s, and that became this kind of you know, crazy thing that was, you know, I thought, you know, my first and only 15 minutes of fame.
Wow, that's crazy that the warehouse burned down. I take it they lost everything, like all kinds of other films too.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I remember thinking at the time, I wonder if this wasn't for insurance reasons, because it wouldn't be the first time that had been done. That
Right.
a company, you know, blew out its stuff. I didn't see any insurance money from it, but luckily I had the original source tapes, and so I used those and to regenerate a master. It was actually recently remastered for the 30th anniversary through AGFA and Alamo Drafthouse, so it came out on Blu-ray. So it's actually available now with a whole bunch of insane bonus features that we added to it, just to make sure that people, I mean, literally, I like to say, I think I'm the only filmmaker who debunks his own movie.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So.
I didn't know it was like a full-length film. I thought it was a shorter. I guess that's just what I knew from, you know, finding it on YouTube or whatever back in the day.
You just get clips and stuff. Yeah.
So basically what happened is because I saw you on Martin Willis, I believe. I love Martin's show. He's such a great guy.
Great.
Yeah. He doesn't even know me, but like I email him once in a while and he always gets back to me instantly. He's a great dude. I'd like to meet him someday. Anyways, where was I going with that? The warehouse burned down, but the way it leaked was like some of the video stores, like the mom and pop video stores, had copies, and so that's probably where it got started, right? Someone clipped off the credits from there and just kind of put it out there.
Yes, that's exactly what happened, apparently, and then injected it. I never found patient zero, you know, the person who did this.
Right.
Unlike Blair Witch, I didn't think of submitting this in film festivals. It was literally just an excuse to make my first feature film. And then everything that followed was just kind of, you know, every film has its own karma, its own path. And so this had certainly its own. Again, never would have imagined. I'm not clever enough to have planned any of this, nor the remake that we did for UPN 10 years later, which I believe was about a year and a half before Blair Witch came out. But yeah, so in fact, the original version was called UFO Abduction, from the UFO case 77. And then when I remade the film for UPN, the original title of that was called the McPherson Tape. And so in some foreign markets, like Canada, which is where we shot it, the remake, and in other territories, it was known as the McPherson Tape. And domestically here, it was called Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County. And that came out in 1998, January 98. And so for some reason, when the remake came out, everyone thought, oh, there's an original McPherson tape we heard about. And so UFO Abduction became the OG McPherson tape. So now we just release it and refer to that as the McPherson tape. And so that's how that, became. And the conspiracy was that I was hired by the government to do a remake to throw people off from the OG version that was real. Unfortunately, I have pictures of all the aliens with their masks off, and you see that these are like Spielberg and Close Encounters. These are little, girls that play the aliens, and so anyway.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was terrifying. And man, if that warehouse didn't burn down, that got released. I mean, Blair Witch was, it was all right, but I mean, it was nothing like what you made. I mean, that was awesome. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So the documentary you're working on now, can you tell us about that? I know you've interviewed a lot of people, and
we
you've
interviewed,
got, some new information coming. So yeah, please continue.
What I can tell you is that it is a 3-parter,
Okay.
full length, hour each episode. We interviewed about 53 people, and only 2 of those interviews didn't make it. Just at the end of it, more information came up. It didn't seem as relevant, and so it's basically a science documentary. I didn't want to do a UFO alien documentary per se that was geared towards that. I wanted to basically, because my background is I've done feature films, but I've also done a lot of documentaries, 1 and 2 hour specials for A&E Discovery and Bravo, and so I wanted to approach this as a science doc, which I think in this field, that's the only angle you can really.
Smart, very smart. Yeah.
Yeah, at best it's going to be a hypothetical.
Right.
So so I was able to pull in some really strong interviews, from people from Harvard, Oxford, the guy who created the virtual reality, not virtual, it's called simulated reality hypothesis, a whole bunch of people that are in different disciplines to kind of munch on this, chew on it, who normally do not, and to just try to create something that was shedding new light on it, a new point of view. And so that became the main thrust. And so, I'm keeping a lot of it under the hat, so to speak, because I really want this to be something that, when it gets released, it speaks for itself, so to speak. But I can tell you that in each episode, there's a pretty cool mic drop, information that we've not seen before, new insights. I've interviewed new people as well as some classic experiencers, and was able to pull out things that had never been brought to light before. So that kept me going. I mean, I literally thought that this was going to be, I thought it was going to be like maybe 9 months and I would be done with this thing, and I would do about 25 interviews. And that's the curse of this, is that this genre, this field is a deep rabbit hole. And yeah, I consulted on, I was one of many who helped on the film, the Phenomenon with James Fox. And I remember kind of saying to him, dude, it took you 8 years to do this. That's not very sustainable, And he was like, yeah, I know. And then his next one, he's cranking out within a year. And it's going to be great. I mean, he's at the pinnacle of this field. And so, but here I am. Took me 4 years and 53 interviews, and it was supposed to be a feature, and it became a 3-parter because I just couldn't fit it in. And no matter how much I tried to trim down, it just, at some point you're not, are you making it different or better or worse? And so it was just like, okay, this needs it. And so, anyway, yeah, it's exciting. I kind of feel like everything that I wanted as someone who tracked the UFO field I feel like I was able to express all of that. And then kind of lastly, these things, man, they tell you where they want to go. You know, you have an idea of where it's going to, kick in and where you think it should, even the structure and everything else. And it laughs at you and it says, yeah, no, we've seen it before, so we're not going to go there. So my job became really just getting the hell out of the way and letting the muse, whether it was them or the creative muse, tell me where to go. But that's what it's been like for the past 4 years.
Wow, amazing. I cannot wait for that to come out. And yeah, James Fox, his movies are great. I watch all the documentaries and things on, UFOs. And, a lot of times it's the same old stuff. So, kind of regurgitated, and it's not anyone's fault, but it's just the way it is. So I'm really looking forward to your series coming up. Let's get into some more recent stuff. Well, actually, let me ask you, what got you into UFOs? I know you made the movie. Had you ever had any personal experiences, seen a UFO? Had been to any conferences or anything like that? Or
I've never had a UFO sighting or alien sighting, for that matter. I've always been interested in, I remember as a kid, my parents divorced. I was separated from my brothers for 3 years when I was living with my father from ages 7 to 9. And I remember just the loneliness of that. And I remember looking out my window and looking at the stars every night and just thinking there's something so much bigger than this. And so anything that I'm, going through as a kid was trivial in my mind. And I received great comfort from knowing that there were so many possibilities out there. And then I remember, I would go to the bookstore and I would read books on this, and then I would see like Chariots of the Gods or Leonard Nimoy series In Search Of. And so there was certain kind of gateway UFO drugs, as I like to call those, shows
right.
that fed you. But I was into like Loch Ness Monster, I was into Bermuda Triangle and all that stuff, Bigfoot as a kid. And so really enjoyed it. And so I thought, and as a filmmaker, it became a budding filmmaker as a kid, it really fed my imagination. And so I think that was it, but I didn't take it. I mean, I remember seeing, I think it was called The Interrupted Journey, Barney and Benny Hill TV movie that came out in 1975. I remember being, affected by that. But when I saw Close Encounters, that was it. That's okay. When I remember, it was a 1-2 punch, really, because you could argue Star Wars is an alien movie.
Right.
They're not from here. And so, seeing that in May and then seeing in November, seeing Close Encounters that same year, it just knocked me for a loop, and I wanted to swim in it, just wanted to really, research as much as I could. And then E.T. came out, and that was, even though it was kind of lighthearted, if you see it recently, you'll notice that it's really a comedy. I mean, there's tons of humor. I mean, Spielberg is a master at physical humor and bits of business. And so when I saw that, and here was, this broken family, much like my own, and here's this little kid, the middle kid, just like me, who dreamed of aliens and stuff, and to see it played out, that was it. I mean, I remember coming home and telling my mom, I'm going to be a filmmaker. And so that was probably the capper. And then it was just, and I was into Scorsese and Spielberg, or excuse me, Coppola and some of the other filmmakers. So I had a range of interests that I had, but I always kept coming back to aliens and UFOs. It felt very personal for me. And then when I read Communion in '87, then I had to contend with the fact that, here's someone who is respected, and he's written some fantastic novels, and he's coming out. He's, going out on a limb. Yeah. And his his, the way that he described it and his prose and everything was more terrifying than any Stephen King novel I'd ever read. So that kind of changed the whole thing. And then, I read Bud Hopkins, and later David Jacobs. I kind of stopped around John Mack when I had read Abduction and then read Passport. After that, I kind of felt like, all right, these are the answers, and I'll be curious to see what happens after that. But sorry, that's a long answer for that. But
no, that's fine. Yeah, great. Yeah, the Nimitz. Was it the Wall Street? Is it New York Times or Wall Street Journal?
New York Times.
New York
Leslie
Times.
Kane,
Okay.
Ralph Blumenthal, and oh shoot, I just forgot the third writer. But yeah, it was the New York Times, December 2017.
Yeah, that has opened up so many new doors for so many people that weren't really in the UFO field, to get involved and say, here's actual, if you actually look at all the proof of the Tic Tac and the Go Fast and all that, all the different radars, the sighting, the pilots seeing it at the same time. The radars get worked on every day to make sure everything is in top shape. If they see anything that they don't think is supposed to be there, they'll take the whole thing apart and fix it. And they kept getting these blips. They couldn't get rid of them. That, along with the government confirming, yes, there are things in our skies and we don't know what they are, lifted a lot of the stigma, I think, around UFOs, and just a bunch more people, I think, feel more comfortable talking about it. Is that sort of, did that have anything to do with you wanting to make the new series, feeling more comfortable being around it, or were you just like, you were just dug in ever since, communion and all that?
Yeah, it had been kind of this relationship that I would go back to every once in a while.
Okay.
With new promise,
Yeah.
Like, all right, something really substantial is going to come out of this relationship now, and then be like, I got a little bit further. Now I've maxed out, and then go away, and we have not too much to share beyond what the latest and greatest is. But the timing was interesting because Alejandro Rojas and Karen Brard, they run the International UFO Congress Convention, and which I think was the Guinness, or is the Guinness Book of Records for the largest convention, or was. It's a fantastic convention. I got invited because my original film, which we're calling the McPherson Tape, debuted there when it was presented as being the real thing. And so for the anniversary of it, they wanted me to come out and to do a lecture on it. And so the Nimitz had happened just the year before then. So it was 2018 that I was invited to go out and speak. And so I was, when I saw that news, it was kind of like, welcome, rest of the world, welcome to what we've known for a long time. The only difference is the government was finally admitting and saying, it's not us, it's not our adversaries, it's not our allies. So we don't know what this is, which is where it literally started and stopped for years. Since 47, Kenneth Arnold, describing this flying saucer thing, which he didn't use the words the media put it together, flying saucers. Right. But anyway, so it was really, that was a revolution. It was revolutionary. And so I think for me, it was just the timing of the anniversary coming up. And then what happened was I went to this convention. I was a little dubious, more than a little dubious at first. In fact, I said to Alejandro, I said, I'll speak, but I want you to know that I don't take myself seriously. I take the work seriously and the films that I do, but not myself. So I have a tendency to try to bring levity, because I'm not I wasn't, again, clever enough to have conceived of all this. So I kind of, in many ways, feel like Forrest Gump, where this is happening. And again, I'm trying to keep up with it. And so he said, no, they've got great sense of humor and it'll be fine and whatever. And so I did this, essentially this TED Talk, 75-minute TED Talk at the conference. And it was great. The audience was very receptive and, appreciated the crazy ass journey that, that the film had taken me on, and both films. And so it was really fun. And then strangely, I started meeting people that are, some of them luminaries in the UFO research field, and other people were new to it and had these experiences. And then I went to an experiencer support group, which was as terrifying as the Whitley Strieber book, because here I'm, sitting across from people who, one of them had done a TED Talk. There was an architect, a doctor, lawyer, a former assistant attorney general, someone in Homeland Security, a major in the Army. And here these people were, and I've worked for 20 years. I worked on crime shows. That was kind of my bread and butter. And so I've got a pretty decent bullshit meter, detector, and not a blip went off. And so
wow.
I came home. Yeah. And my girlfriend, Allie, was like, how was that? Was that, crazy? And I said, it was terrifying, because these people were highly credible. And they were some of them were definitely suffering from PTSD, which you cannot fake. I mean, literally, you can do a brain scan that shows that you have these traumas. And so at that moment, it was like, now I've got to really, and I'd already, believed enough that some people I consider that something may have happened to them, whether it was physical or not. And now I kind of had confirmation that something definitely happened. Again, we don't know if it's in the physical world or not. However, there are incidences of actual evidence, left behind with scoop marks and scarring, and sometimes, there's where the craft was outside, it affects the landscape and
Yeah.
everything. And so, yeah. And so really, that got me thinking. At that moment, it was like, this is even more fantastical than I thought it was, and it's even more grounded than I thought it was. So that set me off on my journey, and so that's when it happened.
Yeah. Now, can I ask, what are some of the stories that people were saying in that meeting? Like, were they all kind of in line with each other, or did some other people have different?
I'll share. Yeah, I'll share one. Which was, there was this guy was about, I want to say 6'4", 35 years old, major in the Army. And this was his first meeting. So he was next to me in this meeting. And there was about 12 or 15 of these experiencers. And he's there and he's listening to everyone like I am. And I'm not sure what his deal is, and it's his time to speak. And he said, my wife knows about my experiences that I've had throughout my life. And some of my family does, but no one else. And he says, and we certainly don't talk about it to our kids. He has like a 4- and 7-year-old. And he said, I'm here. I connected with, and this is Yvonne Smith's group, Zero. And he said, I connected with her because I was, desperate to get answers on this. He says, but the reason I reached out to her is because my kids came in to our bedroom one morning, and they wanted to show us a drawing that they made, and held it up, and I freaked out, and I said, what are these? What is this drawing of? And she said, oh, these are the little skeleton people that come and visit us sometimes, my sister and I.
Wow.
At that moment, he started to shake and tremble and became furious, and actually was saying, I don't understand how you people are able to make peace with this. He said, these are my kids. They can do whatever they want with me, but they cannot touch my kids. I mean, he almost like had to be restrained.
Wow.
And so here I saw this happen, go down real time. This reaction, him sharing this for the first time in an open venue. And that knocked me on my ass. I mean, here's the thing. Right now, everyone's been focusing on the nuts and bolts of the craft, seeing the craft. Can we get pictures of this and that? But the two biggest questions have not really been leaned into at all, which is what's inside these things and why are they coming here? It's not just a drone or a probe that's, coming to some, if you will, another planet or other dimension, whatever. It's too big. And and some people have actually seen, like in the Barney and Betty Hill case, they had conscious memories of seeing these beings through these portal windows, if you will. And so it really, I think we're at a time right now where the experiencers who are experiencing these crafts and the people who are inside them, it's time for them to have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I don't think any government is ever going to come out and just say, all right, it's time. Let's let them know. All right, let's tell them everything. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think what's going to, well, maybe in 100 years or something, but what I think is going to continue to happen is they're just going to continue to compartmentalize everything. I know I'm not even going to try to pronounce the new office they just made. But, all those initials. But I know they have that. But how much information are we going to get from all this? And if you believe in COG continuity of government, that the Dark Journalist speaks of a lot on his channel. He seems to think that everything as far as UFOs for our government has been taken off the books, ever since like Roswell. And there's really no way for our government to get anything because it's all special access program, black budget stuff they can't get their hands on. I don't foresee them ever just and saying, yeah, they're real, and here you go, here's all the information. So what I think we need to do is we need to tell them it's real. We need to protest like people protest for anything else, outside the White House and out, make news of it, because it's the only way they're gonna, ever come out with the truth. But we will see what happens with this new office, I guess, in a few years maybe, or whenever they decide to start leaking out information. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think they'd ever just say, all right, it's time? Or do you think maybe they have a plan in place, maybe like a 100-year plan since Roswell? All right, well, tell them in 100 years, 2047, everyone will be ready by then. Is it a slow release building up towards disclosure of everything, or do you think they'll always try to keep us in the dark about the technology and the UFOs and who's in them? Kind of a long-winded question there.
No, it is the big question, right? My feeling is that there's no reason for them ever, from their point of view, to ever come out and say, oh, here's some old laundry here. Here's a skeleton or two in the closet. Take a look at it. Yeah, we screwed the pooch. We didn't, admit all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that that's going to happen. It's not incentivized in any way for that to happen. You can have, these committees that are going to look into it, but literally, unless they're able to go in, to all the, I'm following the line of what the mythology is here, right? Go into Wright-Patterson, go into, the Roswell base, whatever archives are left. you know, and wherever, you know, these things, if they exist, would have been, you know, stored, kept, and everything. My feeling is that we can't expect that to happen, because what is the point of that? I mean, if they have any technology, as an example, why would they tell other nations that we have this thing and that we got it from either a crash or it was exchanged? And so it just doesn't seem like it's ever going to be something that is incentivized in a way. And to say, well, it's a generational thing, they should come out now, they found all this stuff. What is the end result? You know, the government loves to have anything that can be weaponized is going to be kept hidden. And certainly anti-gravitational devices could also be weaponized, and in the sense that it could be, you know, a courier for delivering weapons. You know, as much as everyone's feeling that, you know, the government is hiding those things, we've not seen any examples of that. I know that a lot of people, you know, push forward the belief, the hypothesis that some of these crafts that we're seeing are ours, and we figured out how to use them. I've talked to people who are in the military and who were around, you know, during Iraq and Afghanistan, and they're like, why would we not use something like that? Because this war would be over very quickly, and you know, much quicker. And so, you know, technology comes out for two reasons. One is, like when we started using lasers to a great level of effectiveness, we actually showed footage. The news was showing footage of the Navy, I believe it was the Navy, shooting, you know, objects down, not objects, but, you know, little things they had thrown up there to test it. And so the world was on notice. We now have this technology, so we're pretty badass. So don't even, you know, think about it. Or it comes out because there's something that we need to do, like, unfortunately, the atomic bomb, the atom bomb. You know, drop the nuclear bomb, and now the whole rest of the world knew who didn't know. And so those are the two ways that advanced technology gets dropped. And so I don't know. I mean, I look at kind of the future, and I'm more optimistic about the future with this. In other words, the cameras that have been photographing these UAPs, or whatever, you know, UFO UAP, a rose by any other name is still a rose.
Yeah.
They are, that technology is really, really effing good, man. And so I'm more interested in seeing the new footage that's going to be coming.
Yeah.
And if they try to say this doesn't happen, but the pilots are giving a wide berth where they can say, or those people in the military especially, can say, yes, you know, here it is, and I saw this and can now report it without impunity. That to me is exciting. So I kind of look forward to what's going to come down. And if nothing comes and nothing's happening, then, you know, that's its own kind of answer, so to speak. Even though I know that a lot of the UFO community, rightfully so, are feeling like, you guys are acting like everything came out in 2017 or 2004, you know, 5, when the Nimitz happened. Shit's been going on for, you know, decades and beyond. But we're not going to get that. I don't think that we're ever going to get that. And so all we can do is really hold all of the, you know, the branches like the Navy and Air Force, as an example, to saying, whatever you guys are shooting up there, because it's not just the infrared, the FLIR footage. You've also got the other cameras. So we want to see that, you know, until we can see up close nuts and bolts. I think it's always going to be this thing that still has this enigma attached to it. And so for me, seeing radar, you know, blips and everything, that's great. FLIR footage, I give more weight to the testimony than I do the actual footage. I mean, let's be real. We're not seeing that much. Right. You know, we're seeing this thing and it moves off screen, or did it lose tracking? Appears to move off screen. So for me, not that I'm saying that I don't believe in that. I do give credibility to it, again, because of Fravor and Alex. But yeah, I just feel like at the end of the day, it's going to be going forward that we have certain laws and guidelines put in place so this stuff is not kept from us, that this stuff is freely exchanged. It's open sourced. Basically, I'm talking about open sourcing. That to me is what I'm excited about for our future in this field.
Yeah, who knows what kind of technologies they may have to start sharing with us, like, the Army had, or the military had GPS way before we could use it, stuff like that, right? So,
And the internet.
Yeah, internet, satellite phones, or whatever,
Yeah.
We have to use the cell towers, they have, I guess, what is it, 8K or 12K cameras on their gunships or whatever, like we're just getting a 4K. So, the technology, there's always a lag in technology, but back to disclosure, they have to protect that technology at all costs from getting into enemy hands. Could you imagine if our enemies could get here in a matter of seconds, from across, excuse me, if our enemies could get her in seconds from across, the world and pretty much do anything they wanted and be gone in minutes, that would be super frightening. And so there almost has to be, like, it's kind of corny to say it, but there almost has to be like a world peace in order for this technology to come out. I think religion would have to be completely stomped out. There would almost have to be like, we would have to turn into like a peaceful race working together, because the technology, we'd be able to destroy each other so fast that, if it ever came out in the wrong hands, it could be probably more dangerous than nuclear war, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Okay. So mankind, right? We've been warring forever, whether it was this village or this tribe with another. There were periods of great peace, but here we are right now with the situation in the Ukraine. Humans have free will and emotions, and what comes with that is ego and greed. Yeah. And those are the two components that destroy life for everyone else. And so I don't know how that's going to get eradicated. Religion is another thing, because religion is used primarily for two purposes that I'm aware of, which is to have faith that there is some positivity, some energy that's out there that does look after me, and that I'm not all alone. And the second component of religion is to control people. Yeah. And everything gets hijacked. I don't care what it is. The UFO community, everything gets hijacked. It just happens. And so until we can get to a place where we're living more in a socialist type hive mentality, where someone says, oh, this person is hurting, I'm going to go help them, that's my first response. And it isn't, oh, this person's weak, I think I can go in there and I can exploit that, which is what, huge nations do. So I feel like evolution wise, look at 1969 as an example. Then look at the span, just 100 years before then. We're looking at 1869. In 1869, the latest and greatest is, the flames, gas, horses, and then
not even a telegram, right?
No. And then 100 years later, we're on the moon.
Yeah.
So you look at the disparity between that and where we've come, and so it's kind of like a kitten that runs down the hallway, and its hind legs run alongside it, and it tumbles over because it's the hind legs, which is the technology, is getting ahead. Moore's law of following technology it's irrelevant now. It's way off the chart, and so ultimately, that's on us until we get our shit together. Until, as an example, it's so frustrating because these beings are not coming here to visit with experiencers, as an example. has been reported. They're not coming here to share alien casserole recipes. They're coming here to say, guys, clean up your room. This is a mess. You know, you're smoking in your room, you know, with the huge coal towers and stuff. You've got garbage over here. I mean, it's insane what we're doing. And so forget about going to another planet. That's not happening. That's not happening for several lifetimes. And then re-terraforming a planet? No, man. You've got to be the right distance away from a sun. And then also you need a moon. Where are you going to get a moon? All this stuff is so insanely, miraculously created. And we have it here. And so, like, talking about religion, I look at Adam and Eve and I go, okay, so Eve, let's blame the woman, right? She eats the apple. Okay, well, guess what? The Garden of Eden hasn't gone away. It's being polluted. We live in it right now. And so it exists today. As lush as we think, and we see the drawings of Da Vinci and everyone, the Renaissance era, it's still here, and it's even more gorgeous than the paintings. And so until we can say, you know, just common sense, all right, we shouldn't be doing plastics, we shouldn't be doing this and that, all the things that are coming right now. And I'm not even talking about technology, you know, because there was an argument, if we want to talk about technology, the alien technology sharing that with us, you know. Well, there's two messages that experiences are getting. Number one is your technology isn't helping you. And number two is, you know, clean up your planet. Well, people go, why didn't they show up beforehand with all this stuff? And I always say this, well, okay, if they showed up in the 1700s as an example and said, your technology isn't helping you, they would go, so the printing press, that's bad? Because that's the biggest technology they would have had back then. So I think for it to happen, like with the school in Zimbabwe, the aerial school phenomenon. Prime example, these are the kids of that generation, the 90s. And so that message isn't relegated to nuclear technology and weapon technology. It's also to this technology. And so I always laugh when people say, with all these camera phones and everything, why aren't we seeing more footage? And it's super easy. This is why. No one's looking up anymore. No one walks and is just pondering things and looking at the beautiful weather. It's all here. So it's you know, where the attention is now diverted to this. And so with Oculus and other technologies and stuff, we're going to go deeper into that. So I kind of feel like we're in an apex where I don't know what it's going to take in order for us to get to that place where a superior being, you know, is going to override the prime directive. Right, Star Trek, direct, don't mess with the people of the planet.
Right.
What is the incentive? Any technology you give us, we're going to destroy ourselves. We're going to set our house on fire with. And so, and then the other thing, moving from that, so just holding that here, we see that we're not ready. We're not mature enough, and we have so much more shit to go through. It's insane. Not to be pessimist, but sorry, that's just the case. We're still, you know, we're in World War III right now as an example. So the other is, let's talk about crash disks for a second. Supposed crash disk. A lot of people will say, as an argument to how UFOs crashed, they'll say, you know, a lot of the skeptics will say, how did they come here from wherever they came here, whether it's from the future or another dimension of the planet, and they didn't check the spark plugs before they left, and they crashed. How do they not have redundancies? And where's the mothership? And how come, you know, the mothership can't get there faster than the military, the U.S. military, and all these other countries and stuff even?
Yeah.
That's a good question. And then the answer comes back by some, which is in the UFO you know, researchers come and they say, well, it's an offering. And I'm like, do you really need to crash your offering in the desert? Can't you just park it and say, hey, the keys are under the tire or in the visor? Why do you? It seems too much. Also, if this has been going on forever, then why isn't there some indigenous people who are cooking out of a huge wok that's, you know, the top or bottom of a spaceship that they've just found because it crashed. Also, I can't believe that UFOs are only crashing in the U.S. So
Right.
Russia would have to have their own crashes, and you know, and other countries do suppose that, you know, there are stories like the one in Brazil that Fox is working on right now. But Russia would have that same, you know, technology right now. So we would all have it. And so we're now just sitting there quietly not using it. I mean, Putin, you think if he had a technology like that, could fly over and wipe out, you know, the president of the Ukraine, he wouldn't be using this technology? No. So you just have to kind of deduce certain logic that is not able to waver and go, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. So I think to answer, you know, the cleanly to answer this succinctly, I would say we're not worthy of that yet, and that's okay. You know, I have a feeling that, and this is shared with, you know, Robbie Graham and Greg Bishop and also, you know, Jacques Vallée and others, that they control the narrative. They, meaning these non-terrestrial beings, they control it. If they want us to know about it, we're going to know about it. And so many people say, like Dave Fravor, it had an awareness. He looked at the tic tac and it moved like a dog. It just like went like this, and then it went up. I mean, literally. So, you know, but a lot of times people are affected by this. Artists, definitely artists, have been affected. And so I feel like, and scientists for sure. And so my feeling is that they're in control. And so I think we need to be grateful for what we do have. And because they are still flying over our skies, I think the best thing that's going to happen is us being able to have a direct pipeline where anything that gets filmed on these fighter jets that isn't, you know, war related, that it's a sighting, gets kicked up to the cloud and it's open sourced and we're able to see it and marvel at it. But, you know, we haven't unpacked the experiencer stuff, but just for that purposes, the nuts and bolts, I think that's where we're at. And that's why we haven't had the big disclosure and why we probably won't in our lifetimes or, you know, our kids' lifetimes.
Yeah, I mean,
bummer, man.
Exactly. Oh man, that was a great answer. Thank you for that. One experiencer who's quite famous had his own UFO sighting, and there's actually a picture of him right behind you, Mr. John Lennon. Have you ever read up on his sighting? I read up on it. Supposedly, I think it was during his Lost Weekend. He was with May Pang in an apartment somewhere. It was late at night, and I guess he went out. He was out on a balcony, and he saw basically just like a flying saucer with lights are going around the bottom of it. So brought May Pang out there, and they looked at it together. And now,
yeah,
if I was an alien and I came to planet Earth, I would have to meet John Lennon. I would have to.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear about that story?
I did. It's funny you say the Lost Weekend, which for those who don't know what the Lost Weekend was, it was a 14-month period where John Lennon broke up with Yoko and kind of went crazy. Got into a big fight with Todd Rundgren, which incidentally, Mark David Chapman was a big fan of Todd Rundgren. And in fact, he was wearing a shirt supposedly when he shot John, and John and Todd had gone at it through this music publication. Todd was taking umbrage over the fact that Lennon had been a real asshole to a stewardess, to a waitress. And he was calling him out on that, but then it dipped into the music and all this other stuff. And John was he was funny. He would sign when he would, write back and counter it, he would sign it, "Love, John," and stuff. So anyway, it was in New York, and it was he saw it flying near the UN in New York. So it's literally by the UN. But he described it as having, lights around it. Again, why does a UFO need lights if it doesn't want to be seen? We don't always have lights on our, craft, and definitely the stealth bomber does not have lights. So, again, it's, for show to a degree, right? Yeah, and so Lennon was affected by that, and he did, some drawings and stuff. And then there's an album called Flaming Pie by Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Well, Flaming Pie is reference to the UFO.
Oh. Because McCartney hides that by saying, John came up with the band name the Beatles in a dream. Some guy with the flaming pie said you will be called Beatles with B.
Came out of a flaming pie, yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Well, it's funny because my two favorite things are the Beatles and UFOs.
Me too.
I wrote a Beatles biopic. I can tell we're in good company here. I wrote a Beatles biopic a few years back, and I've been to Abbey Road, and I've been to Apple and the recording studio, and what for me is where I think the two kind of intertwine, just speaking for myself, is how fantastical it is that four lads from the same neighborhood incarnated at the same time and had some, agenda of changing music, and so profoundly that it's, it's still reverberating, decades, years later, right? And so I don't know how they did that, which is what made me write this, Beatles biopic script for a movie, and I'm not sure that I have the answer either. But it seems like, if you believe in reincarnation, this must have definitely been planned, right? To come here and to do this and to push the needle, and then they transcended and got into Eastern beliefs and philosophies, and were, espousing the anthem was, all you need is love. And at the end of the day, that's really what it is. I mean, let's pull out of this even more. We want to see UFOs. We want to see the aliens and stuff. Okay, then what? We know we're not alone.
Yeah.
And the Webb telescope, James Webb telescope, is proving that every day. And we haven't even seen half of what's going to be coming this summer and later on.
So excited about that. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's insane. And so, so the ultimate answer is, if they came and they visited us, set aside the fact that there'd be people saying, "Oh, it's fake news, it's CGI, it's deep fake," or, whatever it is. It'd be kind of like, okay, so we're not alone, and they have this technology. Well, they're not supposed to help us because we have to help ourselves. Yeah. So their purpose is when we get to equal footing or something close, and we're not even type 1 species. When we can manipulate our sun and stuff, we're there, and there's supposedly 3 or 4 of these types, and these guys definitely are in the 2nd to 3rd, type. And so, I don't believe, as Michio Kaku has said before, that, they would be very uninterested in us. It'd be like ants. Well, there's entomologists, and so that equation doesn't really work. So I think they are interested, obviously, in us. But so we meet them. We do a sit down with them, converse and everything. Then what? We go home. God, that's so crazy. I actually saw it. It's real. It's not, and we're not alone. And wow, I don't think religions are going to be affected unless they say our, God is Satan or something to the extreme. But it seems like what the experiencers are saying is that they believe in a source. They believe in an energy, and it's tied to love and spirituality. Yeah. And so I don't think that, even the Pope and their office, the Vatican, has said that it's fine to believe in life elsewhere, and that God would have, created them as well. So again, we meet them, we go to the movies with them, maybe we go to Chipotle with them, and then have them over for casserole, whatever. And then we got to get back on, with the rest of our life. So ultimately, what is the end game here? What is the ultimate? Well, the ultimate is to get into a space where we are all living harmoniously, where you can still have people excel, like a Steve Jobs or a Tesla, not the car, but Nicholas. You can have all these things, but people are, working for the common good. Bezos, come on, dude, seriously, you're going to take billions. These guys are taking billions, and they're, exploding, these tanks so they can go up into space and everything and do what's been done before, instead of taking all that money and focusing on, So until we get all that sorted out, I think that to me is more profound than seeing beings. It's, and can they teach us? I mean, the people, the experiencers who have interacted with them definitely come away with what astronauts call the overview effect, which is there's a oneness. The planet is all a bunch of villages, but it's all one big village. So until we can get peace down, to me, that's more profound than having an alien, show up at my doorstep selling alien Girl Scout cookies.
I completely hear you. The only thing I would say is if everyone on the planet knew we weren't alone, that may help towards peace, because we might go, all right, well, we're, anyone with a critically thinking brain would say, all right, so aliens are real, there's hundreds of races out there. Okay. We're humans. Why are we fighting each other still? Okay. I don't know. It might help. I don't know. It might hurt and just cause more division, like everything does. The people that say, oh, the government's lying, UFOs aren't real, those would be the new conspiracy people probably, but crazy.
Well, just as an example,
yeah.
Everything gets hijacked with fear.
Yeah.
Everything, right? And so you've got Canada, which per person, they have more weapons than we do, because they're a nation that does hunting, right? And so they've got rifles and stuff, not like handguns or automatic weapons, which are illegal there. And yet they have less than a fraction of the crime that we do. And the question was asked, why is that? Well, they didn't have the revolution, of 1776.
Right.
They didn't have, the other wars and stuff. They were involved in them, but they kind of wore the Brits down, because the Brits finally went, fine, you're your own country, whatever. So there was never that fear, of the other guy. We sell fear like it's, fresh and going out of style. And so all the people with guns who are buying, I've got to protect my family, I got to do this and that, from whom? The statistics are not great that the guns usually get used on themselves, or a kid uses a gun, and there's a lot of responsible gun people who know how to handle a gun. And, we're not talking about those people. But we are, killing ourselves, men killing each other primarily. And so it's the same continent, and yet there's this huge discrepancy. So until fear can stop being weaponized for personal gain, and by personal gain, I mean by, people who are going out and have, shows, they're host of shows or whatever, or they've got followings, and they're, saying this, the minorities, this, blah, 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 whatever. It always kind of cracks me up when people say, don't politicize UFOs, don't do that. And I go, hold on here. If you believe in UFOs and you believe in aliens and you believe in the messaging, especially, which I know you guys do, they say, stop treating your planet like crap. Well, we have to look at the politicians that are interested in saving the planet and safeguarding it. If we're not doing that, then we're hypocrites. We're following someone who's given us these messages and we're saying, yeah, I'm going to cherry pick and not do that. And you're only giving us 2 messages. So yeah, it's kind of discarding the whole thing. So anyway.
Yeah, I would think any advanced civilization studying us, watching just exactly what you say, just destroying our planet through, you know, natural gas and oil and just all the devastation of all the plastics in the oceans, and it's just the nuclear power sites that, if they fail, could just cause major catastrophes. You know, I definitely think that they would be trying to, at least with their contactees, to, like, you know, come on guys, you know, we got to do something here. I don't, it's so hard to, I mean, the plastics is one thing, you know, but
you know, they just found plastics in the blood of someone for the first time.
Oh wow.
So it's being absorbed to that degree. Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable. Who knows if we're going to have rivers in 50 years, you know? I mean, the way things are going, drinkable water in 100 years. You know,
well, you'll have drinkable water, but you're going to have to pay for it. Yeah. And it's going to be much more expensive than your cable bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you there.
There'll be a few companies that have the rights to it. Yeah, it's nuts.
Okay. So let's end the UFO talk, and everyone that loves the Beatles, stick around. Everyone that was just here for UFOs, you can leave if you want, but we're just gonna talk some Beatles. What's your favorite album, man?
Oh my God.
It's the hardest question in the world, isn't it?
It is, because you know, like our cells that regenerate every 7 years in our body, so does our taste with regards to certain things, and definitely with the Beatles. I mean, God, there's so many. The frustrating part about that question is, you know, again, it's like Sophie's Choice.
Yeah.
You know, which one do I give up? Because you look at Rubber Soul and you go, wow, that was such a huge leap. And then you look at Revolve and you go, damn, crushing it. And then you get to, you know, then you can go right to Sgt. Pepper. And you're like, okay, this is like just sublime and genius and otherworldly. And in fact, at the time when that came out, there was a bit of a backlash, because it had such a, I mean, imagine the album comes in. And the thing about every album, the Beatles, that it would come in, there would be a little bit of a learning curve. You would have to catch up, especially the mass. But that one, you would sit down, put it on, and listen to it. And then you would go to this utopia of what, you know, the world would be and life would be. And a lot of people thought there was going to be a great shift in consciousness when that came out. And then the following album, you know, which did have all the singles on it, Strawberry Fields, you know,
the Magical Mystery Tour.
Magical Mystery Tour,
yeah.
And had it continued perpetuating that, and then nothing happened, you know. Everything kind of continued, you know, with Vietnam and everything else. But boy, then you got the White Album. I would say, damn, if I can put Strawberry Fields, because that's my favorite Beatles song, if I could put that, like George Martin always regretted, because they didn't do that then, as you know, they didn't put the singles on the albums. Put that on the album of Sgt. Pepper. That's going to be it for me.
Yeah, that and Penny Lane were supposed to be on the album. Sgt. Pepper.
My daughter's middle name is Lane. I tried to get her first name to be Penny, but it's Lane for the Beatles. So that's how much of a geek I am.
Well, I'm with you there because my youngest son, Oliver Harrison,
Nice.
I got Harrison in there. So
Yeah. Well, it's interesting talking about Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane, as you know.
yeah.
It was the first time that two perceived singles were put on one little, single, and it broke their streak because it kind of canceled out each other. But they had the longest running streak at the time of #1 hits for each of their singles would come out and be #1. So it was a little bit of a bummer. But anyway, yeah, I would say the inventiveness of Sgt. Pepper.
700 hours, over 700 hours they spent in the studio making that album. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
If I do something for an hour, I go out of my mind, like I'm like ready to move on to the next thing, I've been in bands. I'm a musician, and I know what sitting around with the guys working on songs. I know about after about an hour or so, you kind of get like loopy, it's just kind of like, what are we even playing again? Like, I don't know how they did it, like those guys, it's, they started so young and they just played like 4, 5, 6 hour shows every night, like they had their act down. They were as tight as could be by the time they got signed. It's not like a typical band that is around for maybe like a year or two, or does a few shows, and all of a sudden some record label goes, "Hey, I like you guys. Let's make a video and put you on tour." And the band gets out there, and they're not that good. But I mean, the Beatles, they recorded everything live and then would just overdub the vocals. I mean, Sgt. Pepper's was done on a 4-track machine. Well, actually,
Yeah.
they were smart enough. I guess they cheated. They brought in 2 4-track machines, which
Right.
I didn't realize. I thought it was just the one. So they actually did have like 8 tracks, and they were bouncing stuff. Man, when I was 19, I had been into all the hair metal and the guitar god stuff, and I hadn't listened to the Beatles really since I was a kid, except for like what you hear on the radio, and when I got home from work one night, because I asked my boss, I'm like, "What's the best Beatles album to buy?" And he goes, "Oh, Sgt. Pepper's." I'm like, "All right." Got home that night, put on the headphones, put it in a stereo, kicked back, took a little hit, and oh my God, it was a journey like no other. And the last song, "A Day in a Life," it's like a movie. I mean, it starts off, it just takes you places, and by the end of it, you're just by the end of the album, my jaw was just literally touching the floor. Just like, I spent 6 years not listening to this. What the hell was I thinking? Yeah, and then they just instantly became my favorite band because when I was a kid, we had all kinds of records. We had like Beatles, Zeppelin, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, and when you're a kid, you're more attracted to like Kiss and the makeup and more than the actual music, So
Right.
the Beatles,
The package.
I always liked the Beatles when I was young, but it wasn't till around age 19 where I really I gotta listen to like more Beatles stuff, and not just the Love Me Do, and not that stuff isn't great. Hard Day's Night, great album, Help, great album, all that stuff with the Beatles, fantastic.
Beatles for
It was
sale.
just Beatles, everything. There are people that, you know, they try to rank Beatles songs, or they say, here are the 5 worst Beatles songs. And I don't know, do you ever see those people on YouTube? They drive me crazy.
It's like saying, I'm going to rank the 10 best kisses I've had and expect everyone to say, oh, yeah, I like the French kiss. That definitely goes #1.
Yeah.
Someone's going to say, no, I like a wet kiss, or I like a dry. It's so personal.
Yeah.
Because music, anything in the arts, only meets you halfway. It's relying on your interaction with it. And so I always look at that, and I'm not literal with regards to what they chose and whether or not skill wise it ranks. I just go, oh, so that's what resonates for them. That's telling. So it's kind of a litmus test.
Yeah. You and I actually have the same favorite Beatles song, Strawberry Fields Forever. Yeah.
Yeah, and I equally love John's soulful guitar demo, right?
Yeah.
If you've heard that on Anthology, it's just so beautiful. I mean, everyone said, Martin said, oh shit. And Paul was like, oh, we're going there now. Okay. And then of course, it's always a call and answer between, McCartney and Lennon. He goes and does, oh, we're going to go and wax nostalgia about our past. I'm going to go write Penny Lane now. And I'm going to use fucking horns, and it's going to crush.
Yeah.
Well,
the competition between the two of them, right? It's great.
But it's the dynamics. I mean, literally, like I said, when I wrote this thing, by the way, I couldn't fit it all what they did in one movie. So I'm 172 pages in, and I haven't even gotten to Sergeant Pepper. So it's two movies. It's split over, if it gets made, it will be, 2 movies. And I look back and I go, how exactly everything you just said, how do these guys do this? Well, as best as I can kind of, half-ass, detectives solve this. They were born at an interesting time. They were born during and right after the war, which was no complaining, pull up your pants, get to work. That's it. You do it. No one complains. Don't, whine. There was no whining. It was just, keep calm and carry on. So that mentality was, hard work. And it's just expected. You endure life, tough shit, move on. Then you have these guys. So they come together with that. So that's that work ethic, that, no excuses, just do it. Combined with the fact that you could sprinkle in a little bit that Lennon wanted to get laid and it was about women and everything, but mostly it was about Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly, I mean, they loved Elvis because it was the attitude, the packaging, as we talked about. But Buddy Holly was writing his own stuff, playing it, writing it. And they were like, wow, you can control that. Then they started writing songs. Then the only gigs that they can get that they can actually make something of a living, which is a joke, was going to Hamburg and going to, Germany as teenagers. And then the 10,000 hours is, people like to point out that they put in, but they enjoyed it. And again, that work ethic, I mean, think of a band that stays together that has 3 lead singers that has stayed together more than 2 years, maybe 5. Doesn't happen. They stay together for 10 years. Jerry Seinfeld is wrong when he says the Beatles were together for 9 years. They were called the Beatles 10 years before they broke up in 1960. And so I don't want to hear that. Yeah, okay. Ringo joined later. It doesn't matter. They were called the Beatles. So get over it. That means that Seinfeld should have been 10 years because he stopped at 9 because he said, well, the Beatles went 9 years. So that's why I stopped at 9. Anyway.
Okay.
So, so I think that, and then the fact that, like McCartney says, these songs just came to us. Like the producer of Hard Day's Night says, we need to have a song that has Hard Day's Night in it. We should do that. It should be something like a hard, it's a hard day, it's blah, blah. And John goes, shut up. We'll handle it. And the next morning shows up with Hard Day's Night. The ability to do that. It was like they had done so much work. You look at someone who's studying piano since they were a kid. By the time they're in their 20s, they're, virtuosos. These guys were that. And they also were at a prime period in pop music. And when I say pop, I mean folk, I mean rock and everything else, jazz, that they were able to borrow from Bob Dylan, who got them stoned for the first time. They were able to borrow, certainly, as we mentioned, from Buddy Holly, but also all the other, bands, the Stones and everything, they go back and forth. And the Stones' first hit was a Beatles song that they wrote for them and said, hey, you can have this. Here's our scraps. I don't ascribe to one or the other, but I am more of a Beatles fan. But anyway, so I think that had a lot to do with it, where that it came easy by them, and they were also in this wonderful, talented pool of, you know, Jimi Hendrix and the Beach Boys. Can't leave those guys out, which really affected them.
Yeah,
That was the ultimate, you know.
the Pet Sounds album kind of inspired McCartney to make Sgt. Pepper's, right?
Yeah. And so that to me is it's the influences as well. And so it was just a magical time. They came here, but then they stayed together for so long. You know, some people want to blame Yoko, and to a degree, maybe you can. But I'm glad that they branched off and did their own thing. May Ping tells that story about how John said to her before he went back with Yoko, said, you know, thinking about, you know, we was hanging out with Paul and they were just doing a little bit of light jamming and, you know, thinking about getting the band back together and doing something. And she almost cried. She's like, oh my God, it's so wonderful. And then she goes to Yoko and says, hey, thinking about doing this thing. And Yoko said, oh, John, you've already done that. And I'm 50-50, to be honest. I want to say, hey, hold on, wait. But at the same time, the Beatles had their moment, had the sound, which reflected that period. I don't know that there's much to reflect in this, in the, you know, the 70s. And when this happened, it was around the later 70s, or it was before 75, I believe. And so, yeah, the 60s, greatest decade in music. I don't know. I think those should be preserved as that. You know, I have a buddy of mine, occasionally we get together and we do Beatles 71, like everyone does, and we make our own mixtape. But the follow-up Beatles 2 albums, next 2 albums actually, you can get from that would have been, and it's like, wow, okay, so that would have been terrific. And then at some point, it became their own thing. So,
yeah, they were just they're amazing songwriters. Now I've met a lot of musicians and songwriters, and there's 2 ways you can do it if you want to be good. The first is practice. You know, you write songs, you know, Lennon used to say to George, if you start writing a song, finish it, you know, don't stop, just finish it right then and there, you know, don't leave it. And, you know, that was advice to George, which George said, I tried that, but it didn't always work. But the other way is some people just have this natural gift. Like I work with a singer named Johnny, and I would come up with the guitar part, you know, and he'd listen. He'd just listen to it, and this would all take place in a matter of, you know, seconds. He'd just listen to me playing it, and then he'd go, can you just change, go to this chord instead? And I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, like this. And he'd go, yeah. And then, bam, he would just start singing. And, you know, not all the words that he was going to use necessarily, but a lot of them, you know. The idea behind the song, the melodies he would come up with were great. And I would try to do it, you know, after he left, like, I don't need him. And I couldn't do it, you know. And there's another guy, if you like the Beatles, Donnie V, spelled V-I-E, Donnie V. He is a huge Beatles fan. He was in a band that was on MTV a lot back in 1989 to 90 called Enough's Enough. They were pushed into the hair metal band area because when their video came out, the record company wanted them to be all glammed up and stuff. Yeah. But man, real musicians, real songwriter, that guy, Donnie V. Check him out. His new album, Beautiful Things. It sounds like the Beatles, man.
Oh, wow.
In like a modern day version of it. His voice sounds so much like a combination of it's almost like all three of them together. He's got, there were a lot of times where the Beatles would double like Lennon would double his track to make it sound more powerful. If this guy did that, it would be too much. You just got to hear him. He's got one of the, in my opinion, one of the best voices in rock. He's over 50, and he looks great. He sounds better than he did probably in his 20s.
Dude, I'm totally checking.
You'll love the guy. You'll love the guy, man. Yeah. Beautiful things. He actually used, one second here. He actually used my Hofner bass.
Nice.
Yeah, this is a real.
Is it threaded for lefty or for righty?
This is a righty. Yeah, but I could just. That's why Paul used these, because he could just flip it and restring it. So he actually used this on a few songs on the record, Beautiful Things, and he had a bunch of guests come in and play along, so it wasn't just him. He, very talented people, keyboardists from the Jellyfish, Paul Gilbert, that guitar god. He did the intro on the first song, and just various other people, Johnny Monaco, just check him out. You'll dig him. So
right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that keep the torch kind of going, and what always cracks me up is when people admonish the Beatles as being, it's relegated to elevator music now, and it's like, and I'm talking about you, Mr. Stipe of REM, and yet he's not even aware that his music is influenced by the Beatles. You can't not be, whether it came from them directly or someone else that was influenced, etc. No, dude, it was a freak fest, man. I don't know how these guys did it, because it was, it was like channeling. They would sit down and this stuff would come to them. And music and arts are like that. Painting, is like that. But, say what you will about, I happen to dig the Bee Gees and Phil Collins, especially early Phil Collins. And these guys had the gift of booking studio time and then walking in and creating the album and the lyrics on the spot. Who does that?
Yeah.
That's not just coming from, I have this skill set. That's coming from something else. I like to believe, and maybe this is my religion or fantasy, I like to believe that, if we're grateful, if we appreciate, we keep ourselves, the conduit open, that we can channel in, ask for divine help, if you will. That's on the other side. That's far more advanced, than we are, and can, pull that in. How does someone succeed at music and someone else doesn't? Is it because their toolbox has more shit in it? Or is it because they empty out their toolbox? Every album, it's like, we're going to start over like the Beatles. We're reinventing ourselves. And so, some of it has to do with taste. You have to be a taste master, right? And so they would know what's good and what isn't. Lennon would obviously, would say, the rubbish granny music, yet that granny music affected his music as well, right? Yeah. And then, you got Harrison, who just exploded after, and, wrote Ringo's biggest hits. He wrote those, songs for him, It Don't Come Easy, and Photograph was one that he helped out on as well. But anyway, that to me is so miraculous. And did you see the Beatles thing on the Peter Jackson?
Oh, the Get Back on Disney Plus? Yeah. That was, I had to watch it like 3 times, and because the first time I was just looking around, not barely even listening to them, because I was just like, oh my God, it's overstimulation. So I had to sit through it. The second time was much better. I was like able to relax and, okay, let's listen to what they're saying and just try to relax, because I was so excited, But what you're saying about songwriting and people, the channeling and getting help maybe from another source. That's what I was trying to get to, is the other way that it happens. And my friend was able to do that, where he would just kind of sit there and listen and open his mind up. I don't know how he did it. I know Donnie does it, and I've seen people write songs on the spot that are really good, and I don't know how they do it. You know, it takes me.
But it's a collaboration.
Oof, yeah.
Like for you, who's the fifth Beatle? That term gets thrown out all the time.
I'd have to be George Martin, I guess, right?
Thank you. Yes. Don't tell me that the fifth Beatle is their manager.
No.
Go away.
Yeah.
And don't tell me that it was Billy Preston who came out for a little bit. No, you don't get the Beatles without George Martin. It does not happen. There's no alternate reality without someone coming in who had done music scores.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of the Beatles stuff sounds thematic. And so when you say A Hard Day's Night, that's because of George Martin, his influences. And also to the point that, you know, that McCartney's doing Live and Let Die, which is very thematic, but he's also working with I think it was Tom Conti at the time when he did that. But it's the collaboration. It's coming in and someone saying, that's great, let's reshape here, you know, without George Martin and him saying to, I mean, Lennon would say shit to Martin all the time. Like, oops, he would say, can you make this section more orange? And for some reason, George Martin would know what he meant.
Yeah.
Got it. You know, or he would take and clip all of the all the musical recordings, songs, and then he would play it in reverse and reconnect it. He was doing his own genius. Yeah. And his son is really, Giles is a badass. Giles is really cool too, George Martin's son. But no, it was a collaboration and of someone who gave them structure and everything. But they kicked this shit out fast. Yeah. I mean, until Sgt. Pepper, right? They were doing 4 albums a year, something ridiculous.
Singles, like constantly, just always working, always touring, just wow. I mean, imagine living that life for, well, how long did Beatlemania last? Like 4 years, you know, straight pretty much.
Yeah, and continue to a certain degree. I mean, I always like to, again, people go, well, you know, when they perform, you're talking about performing.
Yeah.
You know, you could look at the Stones and go, they do a better show. You know, look at Mick, he's out there, you know, peacocking and doing all that stuff. And I'm like, the Beatles didn't need to do that. The Beatles just standing there was enough to knock people on their ass. It would be too much. It would be too much, too in your face if they were doing anything like that. Plus, they were too busy playing instruments, and Mick Jagger doesn't, as we know, play an instrument. So,
right.
My-in-law's a big Stones fan. She prefers them over the Beatles. And I said, look, here's what I'm willing to say. Mick Jagger has, I would say, a more recognizable rock voice than the Beatles. His voice is you know, what the Rolling Stones music has always been, which is the blues. You know, some would say the sped up blues or whatever, their own version of it, unique version of it. But his voice is insane, and it has the soul of it. There is no Sgt. Pepper that you can point to where they were experimenting. Like, you know, they have their pocket they play in, and that pocket's pretty damn beautiful and deep. But they have their own place. It's weird because they came out at the same time, roughly. The Beatles were ahead of them. They've been playing for 58 years. That's, I think, when about 64 is when they came out. So that's almost 60 years, and they've just, you know, lost one drummer who we're not going to talk about. I mean, everyone brings their own thing, you know, to his style of lifting on the hi-hat and some songs and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're going to benefit from having someone come in who's has a little more range, I think. But again, it's like saying Ringo was the least talented and he wasn't a great drummer. And Quincy Jones, I take great umbrage with that guy, saying, you know, Ringo wasn't a drummer, he was terrible. I had to bring in my guys when I helped out. Blah, blah. It's like, Quincy, are you seriously? What? And I met the guy. Quincy, I like him. He's great. He's the sweetest guy. And
Yet, the reason why the Beatles, their sound was so great, you could say it was a splashy hi-hat that he revolutionized, but it was his ability to lay back and let the Beatles, Lennon, McCartney, and Harrison, do their thing without showing up, without doing a terrible amount of ghost notes or this or that. It was solid. I went to see Ringo at on Sunset Boulevard at the House of Blues. And my buddy Rob Christie, big Beatles fan, used to work at Capitol Records. He introduced me to Beatles, roadie for all of his equipment. And I said to him, I go, so Ringo hasn't played in a while, and just played. How much time did he put in rehearsal for this? And he goes, what are you talking about? And I go, well, to rehearse the songs, playing everything, get back the chops. He doesn't rehearse. So wait, hold on. You're telling me last year he hadn't done anything, and he just can't. And he goes, yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
And I'm a drummer. I'm a mediocre drummer, but I'm a drummer. And I've been in bands with like amazing cats, much more talented than me. And I'm constantly playing catch up, constantly, but it brings your game up. But to have someone go in and I'm like, no, I get blisters and everything if I haven't played for like a few months and I've got to start again.
Yeah.
No, stop. That's stupid talk. Yeah, Ringo was great. Brilliant.
Definitely brilliant. Exactly. Being a great drummer is not about, how many fills you can do or, your 1/16th notes or whatever you want to try to get in. That's not what it's about. It's drumming for the song is what it's about. And Ringo was a natural at that. And I think, wasn't George Martin originally, didn't he not want Ringo on Love Me Do? I think something happened with Love Me Do.
Abduction drummer, which really hurt Ringo. But they did that and released that. And I forgot all the minutiae, the details. But he knew he was in. He had replaced Pete Best, and he knew that he was in. But
yeah,
he wasn't sure about that. But Martin at the time had great reservations about these guys. And
right.
Keep in mind that if you went to one of their concerts and stuff, they were good, but they were nothing compared to how tight they got later on. I mean, the fact they recorded their first album in one day, and it was the first time that a band had ever played there and not taken a lunch break.
Wow.
I mean, the engineers were like, it's time to do it. And they go, we're going to work on this some more. I mean, they were workaholics because, again, they had to be the best, the best, the best. That was it. And Lennon had his own motivation. He was discarded. He was abandoned, had abandonment issues from both of his parents. So it's like, I'm going to prove that I'm worthy. Then you have McCartney, who's doing this because he saw how the power of music would help heal his mother who died of cancer. And so he would sing to her all the time. And then you have Ringo, who just wanted brothers because he grew up pretty much, without that. And then you have George Harrison, who is from another planet altogether. I mean, he used to kneel in front of the radio when he was 5 years old, and he would turn it to Radio India so he could listen to the sitar. I mean, it's all these guys, came at it from that place, and I've completely gone off what the topic was they're talking about. But Ringo played in the pocket and had that ability. And so each of them had, one of them had sugar, one had the flour, one had the chocolate chips, and it was all a perfect, and then they would change the recipe constantly, and each of them could roll with it. I mean, how many bands can do that? Think about the Eagles. They had a banjo player. What happened to him? I thought we were doing country music. Peace out.
Yeah.
Oh shit, dude. Not a good career choice. So
it still makes me mad that the Eagles' greatest hits album is still the #1 record as far as volume ever sold. It's like, come on, that's the greatest hits. It shouldn't count. It should be Sgt. Pepper's. Come on. What's going on here?
Yeah. it's interesting because you also have to look at when people were buying albums versus CDs.
Yeah.
And so there's that factor as well.
Sure.
I mean, you know, it's like people who watch TV now, you'd go, oh my God, this is the most watched show. We're looking at the Ed Sullivan Show. When the Beatles came on that, I think it was 80% of TVs were turned on to that 80. That's insane.
Yeah.
That Nielsen share, that doesn't happen today ever. That would never happen today. You know, it had to be some major event that, you know, would affect everyone. But, you know, everything's so bifurcated and all these different things. And then you have video games. God, I sound like two old geezers here. Video games that are vying for other attention, you know, and so, but yeah, no, it's just, it's amazing, the arts and music. I mean, you know, how many times have you know, listened to someone's voice and it just makes you cry? You know, if it's a cappella, something beautiful. It's, you know, people give ABBA shit. And I remember I had this teacher, we used to, you know, do meditations with this teacher, and he would say that the key that they're playing and the vibration is very spiritual, very powerful. And the way that they would construct their songs, where it would be like, you can dance, time. It would build and build and build. There was a structure to it, a thematic structure, if you will, but it was also, so he had this kind of spiritual vibe, energy, you know, aspect that he was coming at that. And so, you know, I know as a filmmaker that every time I sit down to do music, it's very fucking stressful because images, you know, show you how to feel, but music tells you. And so talking about, you know, people who come out of the gate and they're not firing all pistons, which was Paul Simon. He was writing these horrendous knockoff pop jingles, and they were like just horrible by his own admission. And then Kennedy is shot, and he locks himself in a bathroom for like 1 or 2 days, and he comes out with Sound of Silence. And that unlocks everything. And so part of it, like with young musicians, I say, you know, or young filmmakers, take time, meditate on finding your voice.
Yeah.
You can't, yeah, you're going to, you know, knock off your idols because you have to master what they've done and then put that in your box, your toolbox. But ultimately, you have to say, what is it that really, you know, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, why that's my favorite film, is that there's no bad guys. And you don't see these things, these beings, until the end. If you were to make the film again today, it would be in the first act, you'd have the aliens landing.
Yeah.
It's the awe when little Barry opens the door and it blooms out in this beautiful auburn light. It's the awe, it's the unknown.
Yeah.
That, to me, awestruck. How many songs or how many films have that component? Minuscule amount has that. And so when someone is able to capture that, they get rewarded with, you know, with our attention, and it helps, you know, our vibration. It helps pull us out of everything, and we can go there and say, wow, that's what's great about humans. You know, as much as I have moments where I'm like, fuck humans, what's wrong with us?
I know.
You know, I have a daughter, please, you know. Then you go to a concert and you see everyone just being present. God, you know, without HDD, you know, it's just, I'm there.
Yeah.
And so I think music is, you know, is fantastical, just as fantastical as the, you know, UFO phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's imagination.
Yeah, definitely. And it's his own kind of, when you go to see a concert, you have something in common with everyone there. You all like that band. So it's kind of a, you know, it's good for, you know, just getting together with your fellow human being and being next to and getting all those vibrations from the music. And it's something I miss. And I'm actually going to go see a concert next month. It's Donnie V is playing near me, so I'm going to go check him out. But it's been a while since I've actually went to a concert, so looking forward to it. I haven't been out much since the pandemic, but you know, I'm loosening that. I'm I've loosened the grip and I've started to venture out a lot more. I do have, PTSD and issues with that. I am probably a UFO abductee. I've seen, I can't even count how many UFOs I've seen, So I have issues from time to time, and music really helps with everything, like putting on a Beatles song is just like, okay, I feel better now, a little bit calmer, okay, and then what else helps is actually just trying to figure out the UFO thing, because it takes my mind off of me a little bit. So I don't mind sharing.
All right, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, unpack some of this. I'm not aware. So so what came first, the craft, seeing the crafts, or having experiences? And when you say you believe that, is it missing time? Is it in your bedroom lights? What is it, all the above?
There was one experience when I was a kid, and it's still also jumbled. I can't really even tell the story correctly because I've got like 2 or 3 versions of it I remember. But basically, I was about 7 or 8 years old, and my dad and I were about an hour drive away from our house. He was going to see one of his friends, and he brought me with. And they were sitting in the basement watching sports, drinking, having a beer or whatever. And, I was bored. So my dad finally, get out of here. There's a park, 2.5 blocks away. They walked outside and they showed me which way to go. So I was like, all right. So I went to the park, and that's pretty much all I remember.
What time of day? Well, sports are playing, so
yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd say probably somewhere around lunchtime.
Okay.
I went to this park, and I know something happened there. I don't know what, but I got lost. I couldn't find my way back to the house I came from. I didn't remember what it looked like or anything. And I was just walking around this neighborhood trying to find the house for, I don't know, maybe half hour to an hour. And I come across a major road, which is called Irving Park Road. Or not, it could be Barrington Road. I think it's Barrington Road. And I recognize it as the road we turned off on to get into the subdivision. So I'm like, if I walk down that road, I'll eventually get home. So I just started walking home, and, the cops were called. My dad was flipping out. I called my mother. The cops were all searching for, everyone was searching for me. And my mother wanted to help with the search. So she put my brother and sister in the car, and she drove out to the area to come help. And she was actually search party, yeah. And she was the one that found me driving on the way to the guy's place. She said I was about halfway home, and I was walking on the side of the road. My feet had blisters. They were killing me. They were like bleeding. I don't know if it was like cheap 1980s footwear, like hand-me-down shoes from my brother. I don't know, but I had been walking forever. I was traumatized. My mom said that I told her a nice lady pulled up to me and asked me if I needed help and asked me if I was okay. And I told her, no, I'm fine, and kept walking. And, I did everything wrong. I could have stopped at anyone's house, knocked on the door and said, can you call the police? I'm lost.
Mm-hmm.
I could have accepted help from the lady.
But you were in a fugue state, like a fugue state?
yeah, like all I could think about was I just wanted to get back home, you know, and but there's another version I remember where I couldn't find the park, that I never found the park, and I just walked around, got lost, found the road, and started walking back home. So I don't know which memory is what. You know, it's something traumatic happened maybe that my brain is blocking out, or maybe I was abducted by aliens and they blocked it out. When I was at the park, I then the one memory, it did feel like something was maybe a little off when I was on the swings, but that's pretty much it. Like that's, if I have any memory of being at the park, that would be about it. So
yeah. And then, so that was your first time, but you've had other experiences like that, and you've seen craft?
All the time. All the time I see craft. There was some odd dreams I used to have when I was a kid. I'm not sure if it's related, but when I was 19, I had my first UFO sighting. It's a red orb, flew around my neighborhood for about 25 minutes, just doing circles, very low, barely above tree level. You know, these were ranch houses, and this thing was, you know, barely above, you know, 30 feet above the houses, just circling about the size of a car. It was just a big circle, a red circle that blinked on and off. And I had seen it like 10 minutes. I walked to the window and I looked out and I saw the light. I thought it was a plane or whatever. I just walked back to my room. I was getting ready to go out because I was really antsy. And then when I walked outside about 20 minutes later, it was still there. I saw it going the exact same way it had just gone, at the same height. And I'm like, that's not a plane, you know? So long story short, I chased that thing around in my truck. I got really close to it. It looked like it had little LED lights, red LED lights on it, which at the time we didn't have back in like 91 or 92. So there was that. And then in March 17th of 2010, during the day at lunchtime, I saw this. This was shooting back and forth in the sky like that. Just back. And I'm looking at it like, what is that? You know? So I get out of my car and eventually it stops. And I'm like, that's a fucking UFO. I'm like, that's a saucer, you know, but why does it look so weird? It looked two-dimensional, like, and it was just, then by then it just stopped. And I'm thinking, come closer, you know, of course, you know, like, come this way, don't go that way, come towards me. And it started coming towards me very slowly. And from the top down, the craft started disappearing. I could see through the dome wasn't even there anymore. And it just worked its way all the way down. And when it got above me, it was a black circle. And I was like, damn. And this has something to do with cloaking, I think. These aren't lights. They weren't lights. They were just dots. I don't know what the hell that thing was. It looked fake. Like if I would have recorded, it's very strange. If I would have had a video, I guarantee you 90% of people would have been, oh, that's so fake, you know? But it was there.
There is a UFO researcher, I think Robert Schrader, I want to say, out of the East Coast, not Connecticut, maybe it was around Connecticut. He believes that
there's a whole bunch of little dots around there, like little kind of black holes that generate that so that it can, they're able to go in between black holes and appear. It's interesting because the whole, phasing in and out is a great argument for possibly different dimensions and stuff. And the orbs, which don't get enough airtime, but a lot of people see orbs as much as they, see silver discs and stuff. And so, it sounds like it can come in many different shapes and sizes. I always wonder if it's just not their consciousness where they decide this is the way I want to reflect myself, and then they can change their shape and size. I mean, many people talk about going into these things and all of a sudden it's this huge like space that has rooms that go on and stuff. And so, it just seems like, I don't know if you've done any hypnotherapy or anything, not that is always going to give you all the answers and stuff, but it might kind of, shine some clarity on that. And if you're feeling that you do have like PTSD, which this will certainly cause, that might help, deal with that. A lot of people are kind of like, oh shit. So that's, what I experience, this is what's happening. But I'm always fascinated by that because here you are profoundly experiencing this. And again, a prime example of people who are, artistic, creative like yourself, who have this experience. Head of NASA and head of the Russian rocket program, they believe, beings that connected with them. But it's interesting because I always wonder, like if you believe in Eastern, like Buddhism as an example, which one of the tenets that they believe in is reincarnation. So if we're part of a soul group, right, and we reincarnate and we agree on certain things, I'm going to help you out in this lifetime, I'm going to be your father and I'm going to teach you this, blah, blah. I don't know how this lifetime, I'm not going to mention it, but you're going to see a UFO in this whole thing, but I'm going to have my life set up, but that's not going to be a component of it. I think that has to be. So in some ways, some of the experiences I've talked to, I go, do you feel like this was kind of like a familiarity, like you had agreed to do this? Like when you see that your soulmate or whatever, and you go, oh, there was just something about them that I just, familiarity. It doesn't have to be love at first sight, but it could be just someone, a bandmate, where you go, yeah, we just right away hit it off. Yeah. And so I wonder if that isn't it, because a lot of the people in the support group arrive at a certain place where they realize, I've agreed to do this. And here's a weird number for you. 83% of experiencers that are questioned, when they said, would you rather have this experience or not have it all? Same experience, but, not at all with all the, scariness and everything. 83% said they would still have it and they wouldn't want it to go away. Huh. And you would think it would be like, I don't want that. But, some of the experiences I've talked to always feel like this is a relationship that I have, and sometimes it's an intimate relationship. There's that too. But this is a relationship I have, and there's something about it that blows me away. But when I talk to other people like myself, I can't track anything that I remember, having anything. There was something that I thought my girlfriend and I were walking around this reservoir and we saw something, this guy, I videotaped it. And it was this like metallic thing way in the distance, kind of appearing, zipping and stuff. It was so far away that I don't categorize it as being that. But, I'm sitting on my deck and I was talking to a buddy of mine who's working on his own dock. And I said, let's just for a moment imagine if a 3.5 foot creature, if a monkey came around the corner, you'd be startled to be like, what the fuck is that doing here? Oh my God. But to see something that's not supposed to exist and it comes around the corner, I get why they would come to kids because they could accept it. And when I interviewed people at Zimbabwe at the aerial school, they said their thought was, oh, there's this. Our parents didn't tell us about this, but there's this. Oh, okay. Yeah. Whereas adults, it would scare the shit out of me. I would probably have, at my age, have a psychological breakdown as much as I want to see them. Yeah. Unless they put me in some kind of, tranquil fugue state where I could kind of roll with it a little bit. But no, so I admire people that have had this experience,
and I honor them. And I think that, there's something that's going on there, some form of a contract, soul contract, if you will, that's happening that I'm very interested in. And I don't think that that's been explored nearly enough.
Yeah, that's something that most people don't talk about. Yeah. I've seen mostly orbs. They've all been orbs actually, except for this one saucer and one triangle. So, but yeah, all orbs, all different colors, none of them the same. Red, amber, blue, yellow.
Have you videotaped any of these?
I have one decent picture, and
Bring it.
I'll email it to you, or I'll get it to you somehow. It was from like 2012 or something. It's like my first iPhone. I think it was like a 2G or whatever. It's a decent picture. It's just the phone will only will only let me see it. I can't send it anywhere. I can't do anything. So I have to take a picture of it with my other phone. So the quality's kind of, but it is the only proof I have. And yeah, I'll send it to you. It's a really nice close-up of an amber orb that I was upstairs in my room right before I went to bed. I looked out the window like I did every night just to see. I would always do it. Just look for, is there a UFO out there? Nope. Okay, I'm going to bed. I did it every night ever since I saw this one. So that would be like a year and a half straight. And after a year and a half, I finally saw something, that amber orb that was coming right towards me, maybe 10 feet higher than my house. And it was only about 3 feet in diameter, very small. But it flew right over my house. So I grabbed my phone, ran out of my bedroom, down the stairs, out the front door, took like, I think I got 2 or 3 snaps of it, only one where my hand didn't shake. So you could see, it wasn't like a line. So yeah, that's my only proof. My grandma saw the first orb with me. My first sighting, she was there. Because I ran back in the house and asked for a camera. And she gave me one, but the film had already been used. Remember film back in those days?
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, I would have had the best pictures of a UFO ever. I mean, I was literally 15 feet away. But this one, my second one, I had my phone right in my pocket. I never even thought to pull it out because I was just so in awe. But yeah, I do have that one picture. My wife, the last sighting I had was just looked like a black football kind of shape. And it was just flying circles in and out of a cloud. And I spotted it right after dinner. It was about 6 o'clock, still light out. My wife was sitting on the couch. I said, and I had always wanted her to see a UFO with me because I thought she must think I'm nuts, because I keep telling her I saw another one. I said, honey, come here. Here's a UFO. Look, there it is. Do you see it? She's like, yeah. I'm like, what's it look like to you? She's like, a black thing going in out of the clouds. I'm like, okay, that's what I see. Keep an eye on it. I'm gonna get my phone. And by the time I got back up, she said it went in the cloud and never came out. And I was like, so I stood out there for 20 minutes waiting, like, come on, never came back. So of course, but yeah, I've got a lot of stories. I have no recollection of ever being abducted. I have no memories of being aboard any craft or having any kind of relationship with any kind of beings. But I don't know, maybe I'm just ultra observant, and that's how I spot these things. Or maybe it's just because I'm always looking, like you were talking earlier, people are always looking at their phones. I look up at the sky as much as I can, day, night. If I'm able to, I'll look at the sky, you know, and that could just be the easiest explanation of why I keep seeing them, you know, just because I'm always looking, you know.
You're paying attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't pay attention.
No, they don't. And, you know, family, like my wife saw her first UFO and, you know, she was like almost completely unaffected by it. You know, she went on, she never talked about it again and just goes
That's
on
a
with
whole
her
other interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
One quick little story here. A buddy of mine, he's a filmmaker, called me about 6 months ago, 8, maybe 9 months ago, called me and said that he had seen at 4 a.m. He saw this silver craft moving along about a mile away across the sky, had a blue, like light flame type thing around its back, and it was moving along, and then all of a sudden the flame got super bright and the thing literally just was there and then it wasn't. And he said he never believed in UFOs and aliens beforehand. He thought that was just bullshit.
Yeah.
And he called me not to really share this. He had seen that he had hired me to help him with post-production of this project he had. So I didn't really have a relationship with him because that was, you know, like 5 years ago. But he knew, because we're Facebook friends, he knew that I had posted a couple things about this. So he said, you know, I know you're doing a document. I just have to talk to someone about this. And it was really like, this has jacked me up, dude. I'm really kind of affected by this. I'm not sure what to do. And I said, you know, well, you should talk to MUFON. Specifically, not just MUFON, but there's someone there that I trust, that I know, which is Earl Grey in the Los Angeles branch. I know him. I don't know many of the other people at MUFON, but he was, so they were going to talk and kind of, you know, say, okay, so, you know, these are the factors with this, kind of help him come down from it. But he was disturbed.
Yeah.
He was disturbed. And so I just called him last week and I said, hey, how are you doing with that? He goes, well, nothing's really changed. I just believe in them now. And I track it in the news. I never did that before. I listen to podcasts. He says, you know, I'm waiting for more information to come up from the government, you know, to get more validity for this. But it's you know, as John Mack said, it's a whole construct that you have to, reality that you have to, you know, I can never pronounce this, ontological syndrome, where it's like, I have to now fold this into my life and have to have it be something that I fold into my life, yet I don't understand it doesn't make sense, and be okay with that. So.
Yeah. I have no shame in saying that, you know, I've been seeing a social worker licensed social worker, you know, counselor, to help with mental issues for over 20 years. And it's even hard to talk to her about this stuff. She, as a social worker, has to, she tries to teach me to compartmentalize it, you know, like, because I'm so obsessed with it. She's like, you know, you've got to be able to separate it from your life, you know, so you don't know what they are, you know, just think of it as, okay, I got something to do for the next 20 years. Figure out what these are, you know, you don't have to know right now, you know, it doesn't have to happen right away. Maybe you'll never know, just, you know, she believes me, but she always, you know, she finds the logical explanations for it. But it definitely, this thing, that changed me. When I saw that, it was game on. I don't know why the first one didn't do it, but this one was like,
You weren't probably in shock. It was like a car accident that happens, and when you see a second car accident, you're like, I can take this in now. I can tell you the color of the car. I can tell you who was standing across the street, etc. Do you know Yvonne Smith?
I've heard the name.
She's a certified hypnotherapist and therapist.
Okay.
She's great. She's in Los Angeles. She runs the support group Ceros, as I mentioned before. You might want to talk to her, and I encourage other people that are in your situation, which there are a lot of, to talk to someone like her, because not just to do hypnotherapy, but be able to get the tools to manage, seeing something that is, so fantastical, and to help answer some of those questions, because she's been at this for 30 plus years. She knew John Mack. She was a protege of Bud Hopkins. Yeah, she's great. She's a sweetheart as well. So yeah, and then you can also kind of get a barometer of, how do I work with this, and it might help working with a social worker as well, where okay, I have a little bit more of a perspective where we can combine forces on how to, help me manage with this. I have nothing but again respect and empathy, because I can only imagine what a mind fuck that is.
It was.
And, yeah. And so
it was. I think if it didn't turn invisible, I probably would have been a little bit better with it. But the fact that, the thing, if their ship could turn invisible, well, they probably can too, right? So that got me thinking, there could be 50 of these things surrounding me at any time, and I'd never know. There could be a being standing right here, and I'd never know. And
well, there
that
is
kind
one
of
to your left shoulder right now. Got a
yeah.
kind of a cap on his head.
Can you see him?
Yes.
This was the best vodka I ever had. I don't drink anymore, but this alien vodka, I bought it for the bottle. It was fantastic. Outer space vodka. I'm not sure if they still make it.
Nice.
But,
One of my favorite vodka is actually the Skull vodka that Dan Aykroyd has. It comes like in a crystal skull. It's insane. It's really good. So maybe there's a little extra alien juice in that too. That's funny.
Well, I have a feeling we could sit here all day, Dean, and talk, but I'm sure you have better things to do, or just other things to do. I won't put myself down that bad, right?
Than UFO and Beatles, nothing's better than that.
Yeah, right. I had a great time, and thank you so much. Don't go away. I'm going to stop recording right now, but I really appreciate you being on, and everyone, please hit that subscribe button. We'll be back with more guests. They're lining up as we speak, and I promised myself I wouldn't overbook, but it's starting to happen already. So just hit subscribe, hit that bell, and you'll get notified. So thanks for watching, everyone. See you soon.